I wouldn't say that we're having price gouging. I would say they're having a lot of innovation. They're doing a lot of R&D, and they're having to cover their bases. And so when you think of that, Ryan, when they're covering their bases, with that comes costs, hard costs that they have to cover. And so when they're doing that, they have to increase your rates. I can go on and on about my opinion on that, but it's a matter of R&D and innovation. If you want to stay with an innovative company, you have to expect an increase in your rates. Now, do I think that the way they're going about it is extremely appropriate? Absolutely not. I let them up like a Christmas tree that's been, dry for 5 months when we got our email. Extremely impersonal. But I think what's happening here as an industry, Ryan, is we have a vendor who's trying to get more money from their clients so they can continue to innovate. We have clients that don't understand why the pricing is being affected the way it is, doubling and tripling. And then we have these monsters or consultants in our industry that want to beat their chest and tell people that they're wrong and they're parasites and, they need to defend themselves. I think we need to have a more intellectually driven conversation about what's really going on. And, how as an industry can we combat it and how can we all work together?
I think there's an investment side, though, to CarGurus is what they've invested in us as for a dealership. I mean, when you look at the TV advertising that they're doing, when you look at the digital advertising, the retargeting, all the demand side platforms, and everywhere you see their ads, when we do searches, CarGurus pops up. You can't really think that other vendor partners are spending the same amount of time from an SEO or SEM level that they are. I mean, and you can really see it in the past 2 years in the growth. I mean, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I wasn't really on the CarGurus bandwagon at all. I was an opponent to them. But now when I look at it and go, okay, I'm spending a quarter of what I'm spending compared to my other vendors. And yet these guys are responsible for, over half of my used car sales in comparison to the other big three. So when I take 3 of my other vendor partners and not even factoring TrueCar in the mix or Costco, I mean, their sales outrival the combined sales at every one of my stores. So, I mean, financially, my sales have gone up with them because they've spent money and they've spent money on technology. So is there room for a price bump? Yeah. Is it a price gouge? I don't know. I'm not negotiating for everybody, but I just had a price gouge this morning. So, I mean, it was, my contract's due 12/1 for one of our stores, and I'm going to pay the extra $500 and some for it.
You said you had a price gouge this morning with
CarGurus.
With CarGurus. Okay.
I mean, CarGurus called me this morning and said, "Hey, Dave, we're at renewal time. We've been telling you for months." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not paying what you told me. I don't agree with that." And they said, "What's fair?" They worked with me and we worked it out. So, I mean, I think all of our vendors do that to an extent, but in comparison to what I'm spending on CarGurus versus Auto Trader versus Cars.com versus Edmunds,
TrueCar,
TrueCar. I mean, here, if I sold 20 or 30 cars a month, let's say 30 cars a month on TrueCar, I'd be putting out anywhere between $10,000 to $12,000 a month. I'm not spending that with CarGurus, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not anywhere near in the realm with that in CarGurus at any of my stores. So a lot of people are complaining about price gouging, but it's a price gouge is all those other vendors that I'm spending 10 to 12 grand a month with, and I'm not spending that with CarGurus. So I'm happy with my growth with CarGurus. I'm happy with what they've been doing for us. But like I said, as an e-commerce director, as a marketing director, for many years, I wasn't on the CarGurus bandwagon, but now, they have me at a leverage point. I'm selling cars with them. So,
folks, let me.
Why do you think that is?
Guys, let me give a quick orientation because I kind of launched the feed and we had some technical issues. You're here at our Advanced Auto Retail Marketing Mastermind. I've got Grace Scott and Dave Rozek, and we've also got some folks dialed in. That was Chris Leslie here about to chime in. So sorry, Chris, for that. To give folks some background is we podcast about this stuff all the time, and we do sessions like this to bring the conversation front and center. And last week, some industry pundits out there, which we'll bring up in a minute, came out really hitting CarGurus pretty hard on their business model and their pricing and whatnot. And that kind of spawned Grace Scott and myself to say, hey, look, there's different sides of the story. So that's what we're here doing, is having this conversation. So Chris, I apologize because I know you're about to jump in. Go ahead and pick up where you left off if you could.
No, I was just asking, like, what are they doing different that nobody else is doing? I mean, from a vendor standpoint, right? They're just a listing site. Yeah, they might have a bit of a different customer, but at the end of the day, like we pay them to take our inventory and list it on their website. Like that, I don't know if sales is a good indicator of like an ROI for just a website, right? Because there's really no like, whether you have 1,000 cars or 100 cars, like the actual hard costs associated to that are nil. And if they're doing R&D, cool. Like, what is that? What does their technology timeline look like? Like, what are they rolling out to us dealers that are going to be better? So, I mean, we don't normally see those types of things till after the fact. Like, they just roll something out and they're like, hey, this is new for you guys, or whatever it is. So, I mean, we don't really know what they're doing with those dollars. We don't really know what's kind of like on their horizon. And I mean, as far as price is concerned, like why would I pay? I'm not arguing for or against, but like, why would I want to pay more? I'm a dealer in Las Vegas. Like if I've got 60 cars and I'm paying $2,000 a month and somebody else is somewhere else with 60 cars paying $5,000 a month, like why? Like that doesn't make much sense at all. If a customer is a customer at the end of the day, shouldn't the value just be the same?
Yeah, but I think that you have to look at it from, if I got to go get a steak from Applebee's, is that steak going to be the same as Del Frisco's? Absolutely not. And when you look at what CarGurus has done, is when they first came to market, I think.
Well, hold on. Before you go off on that, like let's talk about real things. Like you're talking about physical things, like the purchasing of beef, right? And the different kinds of cows you can get are very, very different, right? So I get what you're saying, but let's talk about online things, which this is.
Sure. Well,
right?
That's where I'm going. Well, that's where I'm going with it, Chris, is to websites, is that when I put any kind of search query in my market, which happens to be a cars.com, stronghold market, Cars kills it here. CarGurus still outranks almost every one of my third-party vendors on the first page SERPs, period. And I'm not talking SEM, straight organic. And so for me, when I look at it, I look at the fact that they came and they built their SEO and they built their foundation to be able to rank. And that's why I look at them as a finer stake. It's not cattle to websites. It's because a consumer looking for a car is going to find their site. Their site is pretty intuitive and it works. Now, is it a sexy site? Is it, as Dave was saying, a handful of years ago, I wasn't fully on board. I felt like their site reminded me of a glorified Craigslist as far as the user experience goes. But then as time went by and things got better, it's the traffic flow. And I don't just look at leads. And I don't just look at you can't just look at leads today. Leads are on the decline. Form fills are on the decline. People don't want to be hounded by Mary Jo in the BDC who gets paid X dollars per appointment to pound the phone all day. So leads are going down. You've got to look at web traffic in. What is the quality of that web traffic, and whether you're using different filters from third parties or you're looking at your GA and your events, how is that traffic interacting with your website? So when I compare the apples to the apples or the steak or the cows, it's vastly different. The quality from a cars.com to an auto trader to a car guru to a Carfax to an Edmunds. And, I'm always utterly shocked when I look at my car guru traffic in GA to see the quality of traffic it is. And especially from display advertising campaigns, which is usually not the best.
So,
I think we're talking about two different things. You're talking about the advertising component of what they're doing for you, right?
Well, the advertising, just the overall layout of the site, it's pretty simple. Cars.com is fairly simple, but more complex. Auto Trader's gotten better. The actual site itself is pretty easy, where young to old can get on there and find a vehicle, which is what we all want. So talking about the website itself, I just feel like it's a very easy to use solution.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think there's a shiny object in there that says good, better, best. And object, they kind of started that a while ago. Other people had used it too. But because people click on that, they look at it, then all of a sudden they come to our site, and next thing we know, we're getting traffic and we're selling cars. Every other vendor now is copying that tool. And even website providers have tools like that they want to throw on our website now. So, I mean, they were innovative, to start. And I think it's driven traffic to them. Do I agree with you? If I have 60 cars on my lot and I'm selling 20 cars, no matter where it's at, it should be the same. There shouldn't be, in my opinion, an A, B, and C market, and why, people have a format of why they charge more. I don't agree with that in our industry. I mean, I know that when I worked for the North American Auto Group, AKA one of the Napleton Auto Groups, I mean, we had a different price for cars.com for a lot with 100 cars versus what we had in Chicago versus Pennsylvania versus what we had in Florida. Don't
you find that to be weird?
I find that to suck. It
does suck.
I think it's a terrible format. The one thing though that, it's kind of like it's pay for VIN to play. How many impressions you get. I think that there's
I think the only people getting played are us.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, we're a captive audience, but, Chicago's a different market than Vegas though, and it's different.
But a customer is a customer.
They are, but I mean, the customer is a customer. What I'm saying though, it's a different market because you have X amount of people in your area advertising, and there's X amount of advertising space and X amount of cars getting sold in a different area. So I get that demographic too. But like you said, a car sale is a car sale, and there should be a relatively cost, for that type of format. Sure. Now, if we turned around to CarGurus and we said, hey, let's go on a cost per sale basis, then we'd be talking about a true car basis. And then a lot of us would be unhappy. I know for what I pay on CarGurus versus what I pay on TrueCar, I mean, that's a sizable difference amount. Let's look at a lot cheaper for me to be on CarGurus.
Like if we just look at web-based stuff, right? And I was talking to Ryan about this earlier. Like I use Asana as a task manager, right? And I don't use it like 100% how it should be used. I don't use all the colors and the tags and all this other stuff. But it's like $5 a month or whatever. But I know other people who use the crap out of it, right? And are just busting at the seams with it. And they also pay $5 a month. So, as far as web-based like pricing is concerned, because that's what we're talking about here, like whether I sell a car or not, or whether, whatever it is, like it's just a website that shows inventory. You know what I mean? That's all it does. It doesn't provide anything else besides that. The thing that makes it stand out in a market where their competition is cars.com and Auto Trader and True Cars, like that's their fight. That's not our fight. You know what I mean? But by allowing us to have conversations where we're saying like, well, I get this out of it, or the ROI of how many cars I sell is blank. Like we're allowing them to basically use their pricing against us by saying like they provide better or more. You know what I mean? Because then their marketing to us becomes that, whether it's true or not, because we don't really, we have a little bit of an idea, but we don't really know. Like nobody knows attribution, right? It's that unicorn thing that's out there. We're all trying to do our best with it. They might provide, but at the end of the day, like what it is, it's just it's a website with pictures of cars on it. And whether somebody has more or less, like that doesn't really matter.
You guys, we've got a couple people dialed in, so the line is open to those that are dialed in. Feel free to chime in here with your thoughts. I'm sharing a post here from George Nenny from Generations Digital, and what he's emphasizing, that hopefully that's showing, is how CarGurus is reporting on SRP views and impressions. So going back to your comment, Chris, which is what you just want a tiered pricing structure. You don't want to have to pay for performance per se, but the dealer community has pressured third-party aggregators into performance-based pricing. And I think that's what perpetuated the whole VDP views. Now we've got SRP views. So what are our options here? If they went to a tiered pricing structure, wouldn't it be based off of market anyway?
No, it'd be based off vehicles, right? Amount of inventory.
The number of cars you advertise would dictate your pricing. That's what you'd like to see?
Yes.
Would that work?
I don't know if anybody.
I'm not opposed to it.
I think there needs to be standardized pricing for third parties and vendors across the board. I guarantee you, and I'm a betting man, you put 100 of us in a room and ask us what each of us pay cars.com and CarGurus. I doubt 2 of them would match to the dollar.
That's the problem. It's 100%. So arbitrary. It's like it's all a deal.
You're negotiating with the master negotiators. in our industry. Think about it. That's what these guys are doing. I would love to see something where, okay, you have this many pieces of inventory. A lot of people disagree with it, but I have to say, and I don't mean to change the subject of provider, we like here at this dealership, we like having a flat rate, for example, from TrueCar. And we kill it. Some months we'll sell 55 cars. Other months we'll sell 30 cars. And we know that on average on our flat rate, if we sell X number of vehicles, then we can cover the baseline. I think there needs to be standardization across the board. It's tough. A lot of companies are coming out, and again, not to get off CarGuru, there's one for leasing that you only pay if the car sells. But I almost don't mind that if I'm truly getting the return on that investment. If I'm paying $299 a car and I just made $1,600 or more, $2,600, $3,000, what's $299? I don't know if you'll ever get an answer as to how to standardize pricing in this industry.
I like what Chris said though about the amount of inventory. It should be based on just your inventory, which kind of is whenever I have a price increase with them, that's one of the first things they go to is, hey, you're stocking more cars. You must be selling more cars. This is why we're raising your price. And that's kind of where I've been at in the past couple of years every time they approach me. It's also based on how many cars do you have and featured with a lot of, the people that you're talking with. But one of the things that, and here,
hold on. I got to add to that because I'm with you on the inventory thing, but your market also has a dollar amount to it because of supply and demand. So it can't just be a flat rate based off of inventory. You have to bring the market into it. Hold
on. You're going to bring the market into it. How? Like, why is that a factor? Why does that matter?
Because the market is worth it. It has a value. Every market has a different value to it. And that's based off
things
supply
that are
and demand.
It does when things are like rental properties or housing, right? But when you're talking about space on the internet, like that's infinite.
No,
for the most
it's not
part.
space. It's not space. It's supply and demand, which is based off of shoppers and the amount of inventory. But
then they would argue that if I have the right car, then people would come from Kentucky to Illinois to buy it, right? So why does that matter?
That's a good point. I think I think that's a good point. Where I'm going at it is where I'm going at it is, do we need to get into impressions and views? Doesn't that kind of distract us from what's really going on?
I think it does. And again, I think it boils down to it penalizes those who want to play the game to win, which is why we went to a flat rate with TrueCar. And I can tell you that we have only gone up about $500 each 6-month session because when they come at me with $2,000 or $3,000, $4,000 increases, we just say absolutely not. And we stand our ground. But you think about that model there at $299, $399. If I drop my prices so low that I get all the leads and I turn them into sales, I get penalized because I'm going to pay more. Same with CarGurus. If I become the great price dealer of this area, I'm going to get inherently far more SRP views when people are filtering by price and or VDP. So I don't like that at all because again, if you play to win, you just get penalized because you get more views and more eyeballs. But at the same time, I look at it as it's also branding and there I am in front of an active shopper.
Yeah, but there's something I don't think you guys know about CarGurus though, too, is that if you get more VDPs, it equals more leads and more calls, right? If you get 30 leads in a 30-day period, your car falls off of CarGurus, right? If you don't sell that car after you get 30 leads, you actually get penalized in CarGurus.
I think it depend on what drives the VDP views. You can drive bad VDP views. It's not going to move the car.
Right. But I'm just saying, if you get 30 leads that come in CarGurus and you get all these VDP views, right? And I get 30 leads that come in. If I don't sell that car falls off your front page. So
automatically through an algorithm?
Automatically through their algorithm. Because I just had that argument with them. I said, hey, I have the cheapest Tesla in 10 states. There's one of 2 of them. I got 30 inquiries in like 5 days on it. And now my car's not showing. How come this? They said, well, we don't show your car after you've gotten 30 leads on it. I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. So if I have 1 of 5 of a Bugatti and I put it out there, or a rare car, or I just have a cheap price, so there's another thing with this whole VDP thing. If you're going to charge me more for VDP views, then why would you limit my leads? So, I mean, there's another topic that underlies here too. And I just had that conversation with them this morning. I said, we have a used car lot and it's called Current Automotive. And that lot just sells electric cars and mainly Teslas. So, but because Teslas are kind of rare birds, we get a ton of views, we get a ton of leads, but I get leads from all over the country. So that gets, when you talk VDP views, if that's truly the model that people want to go to, then I'm going to get more leads. And why would you limit my leads at CarGurus?
Now, what was their response, David? Dave, when you
the response was, we've never heard of that. And I said, well, I got it in writing from your company, and you tell me it's in my contract. So, I got Nick Berner on the phone from CarGurus. He was our local rep. And I just said, hey, man, you're the regional guy, the manager here. I said, you need to find out about this. He's like, okay, let me research it for you, Dave. He goes, I never heard of that before. And I said, well, this is coming right from your support. I said, and believe me, I never realized this. You guys did this either. I said, because, what do you got? Have a guy with a secondary lot who has a real cheap car, but you're in an area where people don't have the right credit, level to buy it.
Guys, let me.
Inquiries. So
sorry, Dave.
Again, it's another topic for another time, but just if we're going to talk VDP views, then don't limit our leads either. So there's a negative there.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to bring my screen back up, going back to George and Ennie's post, because what he's doing, George is focused on helping dealers save money. And there's a lot of good guys out there doing that. Sean, yeah. And these guys are the advocates. Now, what George is showing here, he's asking the question, is CarGurus showing a greater level of transparency? And I got to bring our recent conversation, Chris, with you, me, and Axel from our previous podcast on, what's in that Popemobile. If you haven't checked that out, go search the AutoConverse podcast for what's in that Popemobile, because that's where we start exploring about CarGurus SEM Plus product, which, Gray, I want to make that part of the conversation today as far as SEM Plus, because what came out of that podcast, if you got to listen to it, is CarGurus basically using dealership money to drive traffic to your cars, but on the CarGurus domain, which kind of flies in the face of transparency, I would say. Chris, if you want to put your spin on that first, be a good opportunity to do so.
Well, I'd be curious to hear what Gray has to say first.
Well, no, they don't put you on there's CarGurus SEM for themselves.
Yeah.
Obviously puts you on their website. CarGurus SEM Plus for the dealer puts you on your own website. They take them to your portal. They take them off their platform. To me,
is that through an iframe?
No, it takes you directly to your website, just like any pay-per-click provider would. So the problem with pre-owned, though, is it's hard to have, unless you have a lot of like BMWs, it takes all your pre-owned BMWs, right? So as a dealer and a partner to your technology partner, you've got to come up with the strategy of PPC to where you want them to land from an SEM perspective. So to answer that one question,
so it's taking it to like a VIN specific, because on their website they were basically saying they would take them to a place on your website, but it was a portal. It was basically like a built-in frame.
Mm-hmm. That's what it looks
like, a landing page.
Yeah, so there was some chatter about that. It's they take it to your website, your mymullerhonda.com or my xyzmotors.com. And the thing though is, you gotta, like we have all said, and I think we've all read, and we all know this, that VDP views aren't always the end all and be all. In fact, I prefer to put my people on SRPs because they have more selection. Very rarely does someone who thinks they want one car land on it and then actually buy it, depending on, unless it's a higher line, trim. And
so you're saying that they don't frame in anything on your site? You don't have any sort of script running on your site?
I don't have them on my site. The two dealers that I've talked to that have been running it, it takes them to their website, to their homepage. And that's where they
just to their homepage. That's weird.
That's where they set it up, because they had two callbacks.
Oh, I see.
So then what about search inventory for it?
What about the analytics and kind of the proprietary stuff? You don't get to see that.
I'm looking at bringing them on to my store from an SEM perspective, because the value that they're going to bring me, I guess, Brian, you bring up a good point about transparency and the fact that I should be able to tap in anytime I want to see what they're doing and how they're doing and how the bids are going and how the campaigns are set up, look at the ad copy. At the end of the day, and just like some of the more proprietary providers out there, they don't want to show you because they don't want you to steal their secret sauce. They don't want you to take their keyword list. They don't want you to take their negative keyword list, their ad structure, their campaign structure. And so I guess for me, it's kind of a risk.
There's ways to get it.
Oh, then 100%, Chris. There's 100% ways to get it. I'm not saying that us sharp guys can't figure out. Let's try traffic. You know what I mean?
Do you think CarGurus has a secret sauce that no one else can figure out?
I don't think they have a secret
spend
sauce.
more money.
Well,
spend more money than everybody else.
I think it's spend more money, but I think that when we think about it, guys, let's take this back to the original conversation of technology and utilizing what's worked in the past. And I think that they have a massive keyword set because they've been doing it for so long on an SEO perspective. What keywords are driving the traffic to their website? And so at that point, if it's, some of the things like I never thought of is Captain's Chair's SUV. I would have never really thought of having a campaign utilizing Captain Chair SUV for my Honda Pilot and my Honda Odysseys, right? For the higher end trims. But those are the types of keyword sets and long tail searches that they're going to utilize to try and drive traffic to your site or to your piece of inventory. And because it's a longer tail, it should cost a lot less than 2016 Honda Pilot leather black third row,
Well, it should cost a lot less because, and this was my argument with Ryan about the whole thing, was that they're basically like, one way for them to make money is to reduce the amount that they're spending in search. And one way to do that is to offset it with dealers and basically say, hey, look, we've got a great program. We've been using it for years. Anytime that you're searching for a Honda Pilot, right? CarGurus shows up at the top. How about you show up at the top instead? And so now we won't bid against your store because we're controlling your budget, and we're going to save. So we'll save money by not having to bid against you in that market for those keywords. And we'll also make money because we're going to charge you a management fee for that.
And I think,
I think
the whole auto industry will go that way eventually. Eventually, all OEMs like Toyota will do that. I mean, Toyota pretty much limits you and says, hey, you don't need to do new car pay-per-click because we're going to control it. We're going to buy the keywords. You can't buy anything except for used car.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think
GM's already doing it.
Right. I think between Shift, Toyota, GM,
Chris, how does that work?
They're all going to do that. And I think CarGurus it's a very smart plan that, hey, we're going to manage your pay-per-click, but you're not going to compete against us. We're going to share in that. And, maybe it works both ways. Maybe they spend X amount of dollars and we spend X amount of dollars, and it's us against everybody else.
Well, I know one person that sorely disagrees with you, who keeps popping up in the feeds, is Sean Bradley, who claims that he's got tens of thousands of dealers that are basically revolting against CarGurus for their pricing antics. And I know, Gray, you caught wind of that. Do you think Sean's approaching this the right way?
Absolutely not. In fact, I think in one of his diatribes online and one of his seminars, he called CarGuru a parasite company. And I think that's repulsive. I would never call them a parasite company. I call him a parasite to our industry, feeding off of the weak dealers that pay for his services to direct them on which way to go because they don't know any better, which is a lot of our industry just doesn't understand this stuff. And if they actually hired people internally who only cared about them, I think they'd do a lot better. Now, Sean's a good guy. He brings a lot those who need it, but to go off on this tangent of like these price gouging monsters, blah blah blah. Technology costs money. He doesn't do free conferences. He doesn't do free seminars.
Is he hold on? Sean's a good guy. I would argue, I know Sean, known him for years, and I hope you're watching this, Sean. I think his whole motive behind what he's doing is because CarGurus won't sponsor his event. And at this point, he's basically saying, you won't sponsor my event, I'm going to go after you. And that's what he's doing. I'm
trying to be positive, Brian.
No,
I'm be positive here because this is a live webinar.
It is live, but the point is that he's out there basically rocking up a storm. I mean, he's even exposing people at CarGurus in a personal light and bragging about it.
Oh, it's disgusting.
It's not a good guy. Well, that's not the way you do things. I'm sorry. I find
I'm trying to say outside of the automotive space and his personal life, maybe with one in his family.
Sure, he's a great
guy. From a professional perspective, I find it extremely repulsive and misleading for a lot of our industry. And I honestly think that more people need to talk about, instead of shame on them, and pulling out the daggers and the swords, talking about innovation. These guys have a ton of products coming out to market that sort of already exist from other vendors that are out there. I'm not at liberty to talk about them because I've been approached for different pilots and alphas and so on. But what I can tell you is when they come to market, they're going to be exponentially better than the stuff that's already here because of the technology and the investment they put in to making sure that they rank the best, they convert the best, and they want to maintain that. They're an extremely lucrative and profitable company. Just look at they're publicly traded. Take a look at their sheets. I don't know. Sean infuriates me and puts me on the next level of irritation with our consultant pool of people that just want to self-promote themselves when again, it's just the way he's going about it is wrong.
What I'm offended by, and I'm standing up for George Nenny on this. At the post I had up earlier, you got George Nenny basically just asking the right questions about features, right, and value and worth. And then you got Sean coming in saying, I'm not going to associate with anybody that endorses CarGurus, which George wasn't even doing. He wasn't endorsing him. He's just basically trying to create a conversation and Sean's response is, I'm not going to associate with you. You can't even come to my event. This is not good for the industry. This is the kind of stuff that I can't believe people tolerate in this industry. And it's ridiculous. So, and I've got people lighting me up right now. Telling me, thank you for calling me out.
When did Sean become a marketing and digital expert?
He worked on the retail side probably 15 years ago. Yeah.
I mean, so did I. I mean, I'm an ex-used car director and I worked in a BDC and I worked as a sales manager and a GM. I mean, I've worked as a damn porter, but the problem is that when did he become the digital expert and the marketing expert on that side? I I understand that he's good at what he does and I don't disagree with him on some of his points, but anybody can be a critic. I mean, it's just here, CarGurus is a product, like I said, some years ago, didn't care for them, but in my market, they work. So, I mean, I'm selling cars with them. So, if I'm going to get a little bit of a bump, I can accept that. A price gouge, I can't accept.
Yeah.
But
and you don't have to. That's the great thing. You don't have to accept it either.
So Dave, you just brought that up, a price gouge. So what he should be doing is a mature, professional, eloquent New Jerseyite, or wherever the hell he's from now. He should be talking to dealers about how to have the conversation with a third-party vendor. But I understand what you're trying to do. However, it doesn't jive well with me. I've been with you for this many years, and I value our relationship and I value our partnership. Let's take a look at this and see how we can both benefit. You want to gouge me by $3,000. You're out of your mind. Let's take a look at this and do a stair step, maybe in 6 months, and we'll see what happens. If I get any better results, maybe we can go up higher from there. And again, I am only using this model because it works. I've used it for another vendor, and I've only been bumped 500. And then the last time, I signed a 12-month instead of a 6-month renewal. And so instead of getting on these stages, I think the thing he just did at his conference with the live, whatever it is, it's on LinkedIn right now, is absolutely repulsive. Putting dealers on the spot. One GM gets up and walks away as soon as he starts this nonsense, because who wants to be associated with that, right? I just find it repulsive. I think his way of going about it's repulsive. I kept watching it before this webinar and I calmed myself down. And then now the more and more we talk about it, I just hate seeing people do that, Ryan, because again, it's what, if you're truly for the dealer, then Sean, your services don't come free. Educate them on how to take care of the conversations themselves. Period.
I don't think there's as much backlash. I mean, there is backlash. I've seen it. I've seen it on LinkedIn. I've seen it on Dealer Refresh. Even the last time CarGurus raised their prices, Auto Trader got spanked years ago for just pricing. So I'm with that. I actually endorse anyone's message, including Sean's, on calling vendors out if there's any sort of price gouging. Chris, I like your philosophy of a more of a tiered structure. Keep it simple. And really, here's why I wanted to bring this on was I'm looking at it as going back to the attribution conversation is what do we need to base the pricing on? And you guys are the dealers. You guys are the ones that understand and are more convicted about what the pricing should be based upon. Go ahead, Chris.
All I was going to say is I don't have an opinion either way about, what's happening, who's doing it and why it's happening or whatever. But I think one thing needs to be mentioned is that, not only if you put 100 dealers into a room like you were talking about earlier, Greg, which is totally true, is everybody going to have a different version of what ROI means or how everything should be done? Yeah. It almost seems like, that if you put 100 different employees from CarGurus into a room and ask them what they're selling, they're all going to have something different to say too. And I think, one thing that Sean has brought up a little bit and has brought to light a little bit more is something that we've already known for a long time, which is, what exactly are we getting? Why are things going up, or like prices going up? And just trying to get just trying to get to some answers. That's all, just the idea of like, well, traffic might be up, or this might be, we're putting money into R&D. It's like, fine, show me on paper, let's talk about it. If we want to have a real conversation, like, I have to put P&Ls together when I want to add products or ask for more budget or anything like that. Like, they should have to do that too. They just don't get to call us and say, well, traffic's up to our website because we bought all the traffic. So, you're going to have to pay more because we bought it all.
But you know what? Here's something to say about them as a company is that they are receptive and they do listen. And I'll just give you an example as minute as it is. When we got our price gouge initially here in outside of Chicago, it was through an email sent to my GM. And he goes, "To hell they are." And he forwards it to me. That was his response, right? And it was an email, absolutely impersonal, just shooting an email off and expecting us to be okay with it, saying that if you don't pay this money, then your contract is null and void at this date. So a lot of people started talking about it, having a conversation with the powers that be within the CarGurus leadership and senior management. And I believe, Dave, you said you got a phone call this morning. So they do listen to what people are saying. And so again, we talk about Sean bringing to light a very important conversation. Well, the next step from someone who really wants to make an impactful change is, rather than, pardon the language, of bitching and moaning on a public forum, my God, why don't we actually schedule a group podcast, a group conference call where you can get hundreds of dealers on the phone at once and have a conversation about it? How impactful would that be to get Sam, their COO, or someone like that? You're laughing, but I can get him on the phone. I guarantee it. If I try,
I was just laughing at the thought of 100 dealers on the same phone call.
But hey, it would be eye-opening for them. Let me tell you, they would sit back and they would listen. They would defend, but they would also listen. And then from there, you're having a real impactful conversations with real movers in the organization to see if we can make a change. And then if it doesn't work, because you've got hundreds of dealers that are just sounding off, then okay, let's go the opposite way. But again, I think the conversation should be is, how can we have a group discussion about all of this?
Yeah. And I've been on calls like that with not hundreds, but dozens of people, dealers and in the industry. And the value of CarGurus is definitely there. So I don't buy into there's tens of thousands of dealers that are going rogue and anti-CarGurus. They definitely create value. You guys have testified to that here today. There's going to be people that say they don't. Just like some people say cars.com works for them and AutoTrader doesn't, and vice versa. You get it all. Hey, guys, we got to call this a wrap.
Okay.
I feel like, Gray, you got your final word in. Chris, you got your final word in. Dave, you got anything left on your mind?
No, I'm good. I just think, one of the things that CarGurus needs to think about is the VDP thing versus, how many leads at some point. But other than that, if I had to take CarGurus compared to my other vendors, I mean, they're just worlds above everybody else right now. And, they're selling cars for me.
You know what? We're going to be, Ryan, the four of us, or those on this call and yourself, are going to be the forefront of this conversation. I can't tell you what to do, but I would advise you should post this on your LinkedIn, the final version, open it up, tag various people that we've all discussed, and let's have a real except for Sean, he'll find it on his own. But let's have a real conversation about this, and let's see how many people we can get involved in the industry to discuss this on LinkedIn or wherever we decide to host it. And I think from there we'll see it grow, and I think that we'll have some change, or we'll at least have some conversations and people chiming in besides the people that just come in for PR.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to use that as a segue to close this out, because what you just called for, Gray, is kind of the spirit or the essence behind these mastermind sessions. So you're tuned in, folks, to our advanced auto retail marketing mastermind, and the whole idea is exactly what you said. We want to get the dealers in here. We want to get great minds, thinkers, and influencers having these conversations in a personable and objective way. If you like what you see, head over to autoconversion.net. Look for the masterminds menu option. There's auto retail section. We've got 5 different masterminds. Sign up for the ones that you want, and you'll automatically be included to attend as a viewer, as a listener, or you can come on as a panelist like Dave here is today. And because you're subscribed, you'll receive the notifications and the announcements. Each of those has a landing page. Check those out. You can RSVP on Facebook, not to each individual event, to each series as a whole. And then you can watch them right here on our website. Little technical difficulties today on the Masterminds watch page. It didn't sync up. So best bet is to get to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and then you'll be notified of each and every live stream that we do. So with that said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and close this down. And thank you, Gray. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Chris, for being dialed in and tuned in today.
Thank you.
All right, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon. And anyone else that wants to be part of this conversation, you just let us know, and we'll get another one set up and rolling. Take care, everyone.